Hello friends! Today we are going to talk about a drama film called Malèna from 2000. The film is presented as the protagonist's memories of his childhood during World War II. The protagonist, Renato, moves with his family to a small Sicilian town as a teenager. His father gives him a new bicycle, which helps Renato join the company of his classmates. After school, the boys discuss their teacher's daughter, 27-year-old Malèna, whose beauty is admired by the townspeople. The boys watch her on the street and share with each other their frank fantasies about Malèna, and also admire her beauty despite it. They chase the girl all along the road and look her up and down, inventing fantasies and discussing them among themselves. It is obvious that they like the girl very much, especially Renato. At school, the boys make fun of her deaf father in class. Meanwhile, the girl is imprinted in Renato's memory, and he remembers her every second and thinks about her. After school, the boy starts waiting for Malèna at her house to see her closer. One day she starts talking to him and asks him to go shopping. Renato wants Malèna to like him, so he decides to take his father's suit and alter it to fit him, for which he is reprimanded. The guy comes to Malèna's house every day, watches her and admires her. Malèna accompanied her husband to the army and now lives in his house. She tries to find a job, but none of the men will hire her for fear of their wives. Residents spread rumors about her promiscuity. Men try to become her lovers, but Malèna remains faithful to her husband. Renato begins to secretly watch her through the cracks in the walls of her house. He buys a record with a song that Malèna used to dance to and listens to it in the evenings, imagining different scenes with Malèna. This leads to quarrels with his parents. Soon, the news of Malèna's husband's death in the war comes to town, giving people a new reason to gossip. All the men try to court her, but Malèna is adamant. Renato's classmates send a note to Malèna's father, their professor, saying that Malèna is working as a girl of easy virtue. The professor disowns his daughter, and she is left alone. People's attitude to the girl reaches outright rudeness and vulgar jokes, but Malèna ignores everyone. After almost a year of mourning, she tries to establish a personal life with a young officer. On the doorstep of his home, the newly elected mayor encounters a local dentist who also claims his rights to Malèna. A fight breaks out, and the police, wives, and ordinary people come running, blaming Malèna for all the problems. The townspeople decide to convict Malèna for having an affair with a married dentist, but in court it turns out that all the love stories told by the dentist about him and Malèna are false. The officer with whom Malèna was trying to start a relationship denies that he is in a serious relationship with her. Malèna's lawyer, a fat, unkempt man who does not like to wash his face, manages to defend her in court. However, during a visit to Malèna, he forces her to have intimate relations with him in order to pay for his services. The passionate lawyer decides to marry Malèna, but his mother does not consent. One day, while Renato is spying on Malèna, he decides to steal the girl's underwear, which she has hung up after washing. The next day, his parents notice that he has this item and begin to scold him severely, then lock him in his room. Renato is punished so much that his father forbids him to sit at the same table. The next day, a doctor comes to examine Renato. He says that the boy needs fresh air, and Renato immediately sets off for Malèna's house. When he arrives at her house, he sees that all the men who drive by Malèna's house honk their horns disrespectfully and shout all sorts of nasty things, which irritates the boy. At this time, Renato withdraws from his friends and tries to take revenge on the girl's offenders. He fights with classmates who speak rudely about Malèna, secretly spits in the tea of men who insult her, and throws a stone at the glass door of a store in protest. He even goes to church and prays for Malèna's well-being, asking the statue of the saint to protect her. But after the lawyer forces Malèna into intimacy, Renato breaks the statue's arm as punishment. Soon after, the city is bombed by airplanes, and Malèna's father is killed in the wreckage. But the townspeople take this as an excuse for new gossip. And then, driven to despair, Malèna, who has neither livelihood nor family, decides to conform to the image that is imposed on her. She cuts off her hair, dyes it brown, and begins to succumb to the advances of men who bring her food. Soon, she dyes her hair blonde, meets a local girl of easy virtue, and they go on a date with German officers. Renato goes crazy with passion for Malèna and loses consciousness. In his visions, he saves her from various enemies. The parents, sensing their child's illness, try to treat him in various ways. The mother tries to seek help from the church, but to no avail. The father, driven to despair, decides to take him to a brothel. There, the young man chooses a girl who looks very much like Malèna. People's hatred for Malèna grows. When the American troops enter the town, local women take Malèna outside and beat her severely. They tear her clothes and cut her hair. The beaten Malèna screams frantically at the crowd and runs away. Renato, who follows her, soon sees her in a train carriage leaving the city. Sometime later, Malèna's husband, who was thought to be dead, arrives in town. He lost his arm in the war and was a prisoner of war. He tries to find out what happened to his wife, but no one has an answer. Renato decides to plant a letter in the man's hand, in which he writes that Malèna was slandered in the city, and she was a faithful wife and loved no one but her husband. Many things happened in her life, but all of them happened when her husband was thought to be dead. At the end of the letter, Renato tells her husband that the last time he saw Malèna was when she was boarding a train. A year passes, and, to the surprise of the townspeople, Malèna and her husband return to the city. When Malèna arrives at the market, she sees her abusers among the vendors and buyers. They are pleased to notice that Malèna has wrinkles around her eyes and her figure has changed, and decide to try to talk to her. After a pause, Malèna responds to their greetings as if nothing had happened. The tension subsides, and all the women in the market rush to show signs of their affection for Malèna. She fills her bags with groceries and heads home. As she walks along the promenade, she drops her bag of oranges. Renato runs over and helps Malèna pick up the spilled oranges, timidly touching her hands. This is the first time he speaks to her. He wishes her happiness, and Malèna answers him with a sad smile and goes home. Renato rushes to his bicycle, and for the first time desperately rides away from the object of his passion. Renato concludes his story about Malèna by saying that over the years he has loved many women who, when they hugged him, asked him if he would remember them. But the only one he remembered for the rest of his life was the one who never asked, and that was Malèna. This is the end of our video. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel, write comments, and like it. See you in the next video.